My name is Joel. In this episode of Unplugged, I talk to Jordan B. Peterson. Jordan is a professor at the University of Toronto. In the last few years, he became one of the most renowned psychologists in the world. His book, 12 Rules for Life, was one of the best-sold books of 2018 with 2 million copies sold. Earlier this year, I did an event with Jordan. During the break, we had time to talk about what it is to be human, his writing process, and why his life feels as an ongoing miracle. Right away, we delved into a conversation about the attributes of the mythological hero.
And the classic attributes of the mythological hero, apart from courage, are the willingness to speak the truth and the willingness to pay attention to things that other people don't want to pay attention to. And that's a really old conceptualization. You can trace it all the way back to the oldest written stories that we have. Because the creator god Marduk, for example, in the Mesopotamian story had eyes all the way around his head and could speak magic words. And that's because the Mesopotamians figured out that the eternal savior, the eternal redeemer, was the person who paid attention and spoke the truth. And that's who they identified with their emperor. So these are ancient ideas. And they're true. That's the thing that's so interesting. And I think that because they're true, we can emerge from this postmodernist swamp where everything is a matter of opinion. It's like, no. There are biological truths that are allied with metaphysical truths, and they're true. So that's a good thing to know. It's a good thing to realize. And like I'm a very skeptical person. Like if an idea manifests itself to me, I first develop the idea as much as I can. And then I attack it with absolutely everything I have at my disposal to see if I can move it. And if I can't move it, then I think, okay, there's a brick. I can make a wall with that. So let's find another brick. And so like with Maps of Meaning, I think I probably wrote every sentence in that book 50 times. And what I mean by that is when I was writing the book, I would write the paragraphs, then I would take the paragraphs and put them in a separate document, and I would separate out all the sentences, and then I would rewrite the sentence to see if I could make a better version of it. And if I could, I'd put that back in there, and then I did that, I would say, probably 50 times. Mm-hmm. And while I was doing that, the idea was, can I find something wrong with this idea? Because if I can, I'm not going to write it down. I'm not going to publish it. I'm going to only put ideas in there that I cannot break no matter how hard I hit them. And I'd learned at that point from Nietzsche, because Nietzsche said that he philosophized with a hammer, and he meant that. I thought, okay, well that's fine, but I'm going to try to forge something that I cannot break. And so that was the genesis of Maps of Meaning. And like I've thought about the claims that I made in that book now, well, I've been thinking about them for 1985, 33 years, I guess, non-stop, and criticizing them like mad, and subjecting them to public evaluation, and talking about them. And like I can't pry underneath them. I think they're correct is the wrong way of thinking about it, but I've got the pattern right. And the thing that's interesting about that too is that when I talk to people about those sorts of things, they see the pattern right away, and it's not surprising because it's everywhere. You know, like I take apart fairly frequently popular culture productions like Pinocchio or The Lion King or Harry Potter. It's like the ideas are there, they're everywhere. It's the same idea everywhere. Confront the unknown, courageously, speak truth, right? Develop your character, have enough integrity so that you can break the rules when it's necessary in the service of a higher good. Find the gold that the dragon hides and distribute it in the community. It's like everyone knows that's right. It's to know that is to be human, because that's the human story. Now, it might not be a story that works. You know, it's not ever. There are all sorts of other animals that don't go boldly out into the unknown and forage and bring back new information. Most animals don't do that. We're the only one that does, really, in any real sense. And maybe we're an evolutionary dead end, but I don't think so. I think that if we chose to abide by our deepest nature, that we could get through anything. We're tough, man. And we're tougher than we think. And we're worse than we think, too, by a large margin. And you need to learn that about yourself before you have any respect for yourself. You know, you have to learn that you're, well, that's the encounter with the shadow. You're the Auschwitz guard. Right, who's enjoying it? That's you. You think, oh no, that's not me. It's like, then you're too weak to do it. You think, well, that's not weakness, that's goodness. It's like, no, it's not. That's just naivety. There's just nothing to you. It's post-monster that's good, not pre-monster.
About your new book, was the creative process of writing it very different from Maps of Meaning?
It was, I wouldn't say it was very different. It was shorter. It was probably less demanding. I mean, it was writing Maps of Meaning was really hard. It took me right to the edge of my physiological tolerance. I had to stop. Partly it disciplined me. I mean, I had to stop doing all sorts of things I was doing in order to write. I had to quit smoking. I had to quit drinking. I had to start eating properly. I had to keep my room clean. I had to go to the gym and work out. I had to make sure that I kept my domestic duties in order and was doing well in my career. Like, I had to put myself completely straight so that I could tolerate the strain of writing the book. Because I was writing it I wrote for 3 hours a day for about 15 years. And I was thinking about it all the time other than that. And also doing a tremendous amount of reading and all of that. And so I'd learned from Jung at that point, because he talked a fair bit about the alchemical transformation, which I learned a lot about, although it's very difficult to explain. But one of the things he said was, if you were dealing with the prima materia, which is it's what matters outside of what you understand. Because Jung kind of thought of the world as being made of what matters outside of what you understand. It's something like potential, which is a nice way of thinking about it. If you're going to deal with unvarnished potential, then you better be in shape, because it'll tear you apart if you're not. And so, well, so lots of times it was, I can either, because I could tell too when I was writing, lots of times, especially as the editing process continued, if I wasn't sharp, then when I edited it, I made it worse rather than better. And so that would be hung over, well, in any state of physiological disarray. So I had a lot of that, I would say, when I was writing this book, but not as much. It was, and I was looser about it. Like, there's a lot of humor in 12 Rules for Life. Mm-hmm. There's no humor in Maps of Meaning, I wouldn't say. Or if there is, there is no humor in Maps of Meaning. It's a dead serious, and that's too serious, right? Things should be leavened with some humor.
But is there more humor in your life nowadays that you were able to write another kind of book?
There's always been a lot of humor in my life, I would say, although I've been a very serious person. I mean, I've had my friends when I was a kid. I wrote about this a bit in 12 Rules for Life. I had 3 friends in particular when I was in high school, and then good ways through my university career, who were like, they were competitive comedians. They were unbelievably funny, and most of my friends were like that. And we used to sit around and just like amuse ourselves all the time, right? The whole point of the conversation was to say the funniest thing possible. And that was often insulting, although, you know, playfully so. And I love that. I miss it. And I don't have friends who do that. They're not, I think because they're not working class, I think is why, but I'm not sure. But I've been hanging around with comedians like mad again in the last year, which is a weird thing. Like, most of the people that I've made contact with on YouTube, they're all comedians. You know, Rogan's a stand-up comedian, Dave Rubin's a stand-up comedian, Steven Crowder's a stand-up comedian, Duncan Trussell, Brian Callen, they're all stand-up comedians. And, well, comedians tell the truth. That's what makes them funny.
Exactly, yeah.
They'll say the things that no one else dares to say, right? They're the jesters in the king's court.
And that's why you like hanging around with them. Yeah.
Well, I like to laugh too, and to play, you know, like, I'm actually a very playful person, although you wouldn't know it over the last year and a half because it's been intense. But that's not good. Like, if you get so intense that you're no longer playing, then that's a bad thing, because that means that's a bad thing. Healthy animals play, right? Right. There's a circuit for play, and it gets suppressed if you're stressed.
Yeah.
So you don't, that means things are out of balance. You have to be able to play even with terrible things.
So you'd like to play more in the next few years?
Well, I'm playing a lot at the moment, but yes, that's the plan, you know, like, hopefully I can play a good game. I better be able to.
And when did you win?
I'm winning now. And my life is like, I have a ridiculous life. I have way more opportunities than I could possibly make use of. Wherever I go, people come up and tell me how happy they are because they've watched my videos, because their life has changed in positive ways. And like, imagine you get to go wherever you want, and all that happens is people come up and tell you how happy they are that they've been listening to you. Jesus, it's like, it's hard to imagine how anything could possibly be better than that. So,
are you grateful for that you can?
oh, it's overwhelming. It's absolutely, I just can't, it's like an ongoing miracle. I can't believe it. It's crazy. You know, I'm by no means adjusted to it. I don't think I ever will be.